Hi everyone, this week on Shelf Isolation I'm going to be talking to you about George Orwell's 1984. So lots of you will have heard of 1984 already. It's a dystopian book about a totalitarian controlling government in 1984. So Orwell was writing in 1949 and he was basically writing as a warning that if we kind of follow the path of having a controlling communist government like what they were seeing at the time in countries like Russia, then this is what our society would look like. So the book follows the life of maybe a couple of years in the life of a character named Winston Smith, and Winston Smith works for the government. So he works for the party, which is the government. So the government was called the party. There's only one political party. Everyone votes for this same party. Totally undemocratic. And the party leader is Big Brother. So Big Brother is a term you will have heard of before, very much like the TV programme. You know, the TV programme definitely came after 1984, but it's this idea that he's watching you all the time. Big Brother makes it sound like he's your friend. That was the kind of message of the party. We're doing this, we're spying on you for your own good. So what his job is he alters previous news stories to make the party look good, and destroys any evidence of the party looking bad at all. So what they're doing is that they're controlling the news, essentially. They are manipulating people's thoughts. And we can kind of see that today. If we look at modern media, we definitely see the media controlling the news. So he's been working for the party, and he's starting to become a little bit disillusioned. So he's kind of grown up in this society, to the extent where he's so manipulated, like he can't even remember his childhood memories. His past is so blurry, but he's starting to become a little bit disillusioned. And he starts off by doing some small things. So like he buys a paperweight, which is obviously not allowed. He starts to have these thoughts, which is not allowed either. You're not allowed to have any kind of thoughts that would implicate the party or thoughts against the party. And he buys a diary, essentially. So he buys a diary and starts to write down these thoughts that he's having. Totally not allowed. He could get killed for this. The government was really, really strict. And then he becomes a little bit suspicious of someone he works with called O'Brien. And he thinks that O'Brien is part of this secret brotherhood where they go against the party and they plan to overthrow the party. And he meets up with O'Brien, and O'Brien, is part of this, and he kind of gives him a job to do. Winston also starts an affair with a girl called Julia, but things do not go well, essentially. So I'm not going to tell any more about the plot, because I do want you to read it if you're interested. So lots of ways that the government controls the people. One of the ways that they do that is through language. So they've invented this language called Newspeak, and they want to get that implemented by 2050, which is not that far away from now, really. And what they want to do is remove any bad words from the English language for this Newspeak. So rather than saying bad, you would say ungood. And the way that works is it manipulates our thoughts so that we don't have any bad thoughts about the government. And it creates this really, really simplistic language, so that when you're translating older texts, some texts are for instance, the Declaration of Independence, about independence and independent thought would be, you couldn't translate it. It would be, what they'd call a thought crime. It wouldn't be allowed. So it just wouldn't work. So themes within the book, you could talk a lot about society. Obviously it explores the dangers of a totalitarian government, and it's a really interesting one to talk about, because there's like a sense of hopelessness with Winston by the end. He feels totally like he can't do anything. He can't save this situation. Manipulation obviously is a really good one. Citizens are constantly reminded that free and independent thought is not allowed in this society. Children are taken away from their families and taught to spy on their parents and say, report them to the government if they're doing anything illegal. Sex is for procreation only, and this creates a lot of frustration amongst people. So what they do is they have these meetings where people get really, really angry. So they put on angry music and get all the crowd riled up, and they encourage people to channel their energies and their frustrations towards the party's enemies. But a lot of these enemies are not real. They're like totally made up. Physical manipulation, so they're given kind of like these hard jobs to do, lots of manual labour. So by the end, they're just totally too tired to fight. And we can think about, as comparison, Saturday night and Sunday morning, because, there's this sense of hopelessness among people. There's no real, they know things aren't brilliant, but they can't do anything other like that. It's not like they're happy, but things aren't bad enough to do anything. Slightly different here, things are definitely bad enough to do something, but you can't. Think about loyalty as well. The only loyalty people can have is to the party. Any other loyalty is totally outlawed. If you're loyal to something else, then that means that you are not being loyal to the party. We could also think a little bit about the proles, they're called. So really, really interesting underclass in society in the book. So these are a group of people that are out of normal society, and they're an underclass, so they've not got any like wealth or resources, but they're so like brash and so harsh. They've got described as like being worn, and they've got ruddy faces from working outside, and they've got loads and loads of kids. And they could start a rebellion. There's so many more of them than those higher up, but they lack the resources to do so. And again, thinking about Saturday night and Sunday morning, or even train spotting, for instance, societies where life isn't brilliant, but people lack resources or education or the means to do anything about it. Another really interesting theme might be identity. So Winston Smith is a character that does have identity, but people in 1984, as a rule, don't have identity. So he's trying to like find his identity, but people wear the same uniforms as each other. They do the same thing every day. They do the same exercises in the morning, and if they don't, they're in trouble. They're being watched all the time. There's propaganda everywhere saying Big Brother is watching you. So total lack of identity, and if you are sort of marked as different, then that's a reason to get into trouble. The government is so strict that even like a twitch of the face or a move of the eyebrow could get you into trouble. So they really want to discourage any sort of individuality in this society. So I just want to finish with a quotation. So who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. So really interesting when we're thinking about Winston Smith's job. So the party is controlling because it's controlling the past and the future and the present. So it's manipulating all the time, basically. And that kind of links in with Winston Smith's job. So really interesting read. A book that I didn't read until quite recently, actually. I read it a couple of years ago and revisited it this week. But yeah, definitely worth a read, even if you're not thinking about doing it for coursework. If you want to talk about it further, please let me know. And I'll speak to you next week.